Can people hear us? Are we live yet? I believe we are now.
It says 8 people waiting. Okay, I think you got it.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Welcome.
Sorry about the wait. I thought we were live. Can you guys hear us now? We have been trying to get live. I thought we were live. We've been having a long conversation here.
Yep, 5 people are now watching, bro. You got somebody watching.
Okay.
Hey, guys. Welcome. Sorry we're late. We were
Sorry
having
for
some
the
technical
wait.
problems, thinking that we're actually live when, in fact, we were not live at all.
We were seeing comments pop up. This is our first Hangout ever, so I knew there would be some technical difficulties. I wish we had recorded what we were saying, but we're going to start over from scratch. He was seeing comments pop up, and I had a presentation going, so he was assuming that we were live, and I was assuming we were live because I didn't see that I had to push OK, that we could go live for up to 8 hours. So sorry for the wait. Hopefully that brought more of you along. We look forward to fellowshipping with you guys. We're going to try to do that more often. Got my brother Michael here from Grace and Truth Fellowship. Say hi.
Hey guys, how's everybody doing? We're excited to kind of get back to doing what we really are passionate about. We have been swamped being wrestling coaches, and we actually coach together. We teach right across the hall from each other. You know, you got math and science, and we're actually ended up in the same hall, which is really confusing for our students who can never tell us apart. But you know, we're going to have a lot more time to devote to answering questions and putting videos. And we are running 2 channels. We have, you know, of course, Flat Earth Brothers is our biggest channel, but we have another channel, the Grace and Truth Fellowship. And if you haven't subscribed to that, go ahead. We're kind of using that for strictly biblical based videos. Okay, and if you have anything, I know the whole biblical Earth movement has brought a lot of people to questioning things, and I think it's led a lot of people back to the Bible. And what we're hoping is that people will start coming to a better understanding of not only how the Earth works and all this stuff, but how God and how His Word works, and kind of clear some of the confusion, because I think that's a big problem for a lot of people, is now trying to make sense of something they've overlooked for such a long time.
Exactly. So anybody else, can they actually hear us now? Let's double check before we try this again. Can you guys hear us pretty good? Loud and clear? Is everything functioning properly? On the comment end, is anybody there that can comment?
Yeah, I think everybody can hear us now. It says that we've got people watching.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I wanted to do this to first put out some helpful fake space links for you guys who are either working on videos, trying to share stuff with your friends who don't believe you when you show them stuff. They think you've doctored it. I've compiled some links, put them in the description. And I did this in reaction to a lot of things. The censorship, of course, is one thing, but I noticed some of them are vanishing without a trace, like a video that we did exposing a glitch in the Matrix when we were watching a SPACEX land where they were landing their tank onto this little boat thing they have out in the water, the little barge, whatever you call those things, the landing pad. And when they landed it, something glitched with their computer animation system or whatever. So I did a video about it, and somebody commented, and not another Minecraft channel, they commented and said they deleted the original video. And I went on there, sure enough, this is what I saw. Little video unavailable screen. So they don't always change their live feeds. They sometimes just delete them entirely. So try to download stuff. When you catch something fake and it's live from SpaceX or anybody, download that, like screen record it, something. Try to get it before they delete it or change it, because they're getting really good at faking space. I think Mike Helmick said it best when he said there's a time coming when we will not be able to tell the difference if it's fake or real, and what's not reality and what is reality. Technology is always getting better to fake space, and they have a way bigger budget than Hollywood. And there are so many movies you've probably seen out there, space movies, where you can't tell if it's real or fake. And they can do a lot of these things, most of these things, in real time and live. starting to
The
figure
good
that
thing
out.
is they only have to fool most people. They don't have
Yeah,
to fool everybody. That's the beauty of the whole thing is as long as it's believable to most.
yeah.
And I think most people aren't going to look that far into it.
So here's some of the links. We have the satellite string attached to the string attached to the satellite. Some of the other classics are first times ever seeing stars from space. The Apollo astronauts taking the first picture of Earth. Now, this isn't the original footage. This was from a documentary
I'm not seeing
of
that
the
on
leaked
me yet.
footage. You're not seeing that? It may be
Mm.
a delayed. It might be a little bit
Oh,
delayed.
maybe that's all it is.
Okay. But there are lots of links here, and this is not all of the links. This is going to be an ongoing thing. I'm wanting us to get together as a community and find the fake space footage, the original footage. There's some really good channels that I can send. I'll also add where you can locate some of this footage and watch through it if you have time and your schedule's opened up. You can find some stuff and share anything new that you find with us. But this will be an ongoing list. This is some of the ones that I just found within, an hour or two of searching, maybe a
Okay,
little
there
bit
we
more.
go.
So you find anything, please share it with us in the comments. Hopefully it won't get blocked. Or you can send us an email. Send us an email at flatearthbrothers@gmail.com. You can send us links there. I will try to put my email down below as well. But just wanted to share some of these. That was one of the things. And talk about some of the most recent things that are kind of blowing our mind when looking into proving that there's a lot of fraud out there. And some of the, we always say that we don't have any real pictures of Earth, and people don't believe that. And it's a very bold statement because I can remember growing up and seeing this picture here, the Apollo Earth photo from Apollo 17. And it's a really good picture. It kind of looks more real than even some of the more recent pictures. And with the technology of that time, that's quite the feat. But they had a really good ability to get really high. And if you've ever seen some really good fisheye footage where they're like skydiving and all of a sudden they look down at the Earth and the Earth looks like it's a globe from like however high they are, 15,000 feet, 20,000 feet. There's something similar to that, but they've done something here. I mean, it does kind of look almost computer animated, even though they didn't have that. I mean, they could have used Bob Ross back when he was still alive. I don't know exactly how they did this, but it's definitely not a picture of the entire Earth. And a Facebook meme is what really brought this to my attention, and it's how you can debunk this image. And again, when I'm looking at this, I try to look at it from the baller aspect, where they are here and they just really want to debunk everything we send at them right away. And I went, okay, I'm going to pull up the daytime map of Earth and debunk this like a baller would and look at it from their perspective, because it should be pretty easy to do. And I look at it and I start comparing just by glancing, and I noticed right away that a lot of the places that were on here that they mentioned in the dark shouldn't be like a lot. So
Yeah.
you start looking.
And you could honestly blow that circle up even bigger because they're going to argue that, oh, you're not seeing the entire lit side of the Earth. It could go further back,
Yeah.
and it still wouldn't match. And I think it's funny over here, Jay. I think it's Jay Tassie. He said space is like Santa Claus. And I was watching a guy debate somebody who's on a radio show, and they actually brought in an astronaut, and they're like, "Why don't you believe this guy?" If they had asked him a question, they said, do you think you'll ever go back to believing the Earth is a globe? And he compared it to Santa Claus. He said, are you going to go back to believing in Santa Claus again? And I thought, man, that is a really good comparison because it's something you're told when you're a kid. You just believe it. And once you realize Santa Claus is fake, you don't go back.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny to put it in that perspective because my daughter now is in kindergarten and she comes back telling me, hey, Daddy, did you know that the sun is way bigger than the Earth, so big and so far. And she's telling me this stuff, and I don't want to tell her like, look, maybe it's not what they're telling you. How do you teach your kid who's going to be the laughing stock of the school if she starts saying the Earth is flat and the teacher's a liar? How do you start that conversation?
Yeah, it's very interesting because my son, when he was around 6, when I was waking up to this and going on 7, and I never forced it down him and said, hey, you need to believe this way. It's one way or the other. He overheard me talking about it and started coming up with some amazing proofs of his own. Like he was talking about things. You'd be amazed at how smart these young minds are because I heard a baller say, he said, I've seen some really smart people get fooled by videos on YouTube. And that's what they think about, a lot of us. But you have to look back. If you can remember being a little kid, how old were you when you first believed in the globe. When you first actually 100% believed, I've seen enough proof, Earth is round, it's moving through space. And many of us can't remember. We've just always believed it because of what we were told, kind of like Santa. And a couple pictures like this one here of the globe. You see a picture, you're told it's true, and that these people saw it. They were witnesses. They were Apollo astronauts. They were our heroes, very patriotic. They had a flag emblem on their shoulder, and it was an American flag. We're Americans. We're awesome.
I mean, you think back to every television, every movie you saw. Like I can remember watching Superman when he flies around the Earth and thinking, how cool would that be to actually be out there and see that, and it just seems so, and it just seems so easy to believe. It didn't seem far-fetched. It just seemed like reality.
Yeah. It's a really big fantasy, and it's a fun fantasy we all had. We all believed it. We thought about it. We watched the movie The Martian. I showed it to my class, every class I watched it, 100 times. And I thought, man, it would be so cool to go to Mars. Like I fantasized about stuff like that. Like how cool would that be to survive there and be on your own and have to do what he did and go through all those challenges.
Someone said I'm a child of Satan. I don't know why they're saying that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot going on in the community right now with people being censored, and Google came out and YouTube both came out really strongly saying we are going to censor this flat Earth movement, and they were saying they're going to hire thousands of people and install software to start cutting this stuff down. And it's easy to get discouraged by that, especially we got all this work we're putting into trying to wake people up, and then our channels get blocked and our videos don't get any views anymore, and it can be disheartening. But when you look at from the biblical perspective, the Bible tells us that anyone who's seeking godliness is going to face persecution. And I think it's important for us to realize that if we're seeking truth, if we're seeking godliness, and we really want to know the truth about the world, and we're trying to spread that, we are going to face persecution. And I think that's a good sign. It's something we should be excited about, because if the whole world is starting to agree with you, I think it's time to pause and reflect. I'm trying to say, well, if everyone's on my side, if I'm on the side of the majority, where did I go wrong? And I think you're always, if you're looking for truth, you're always going to be considered a conspiracy theorist in some ways. And I think that's a good sign that you're getting this negative feedback and this persecution constantly.
It's like that with religion too. You're swimming against the mainstream. When you start finding truth, you're going to make a lot of people angry. Even people who figure out that the earth is stationary, when you start talking to them about other things, like things they were taught growing up about who God is, that's one of the things that, and who the sun is, and how much, all these kind of there's little bitty false teachings in there that make a huge difference in our walk. And that's what the Holy Spirit's for, to really disperse that confusion in our minds, not to believe things and learn things from the internet or anywhere, but to go to the Father and say, look, show me the truth. I'm ready for it. Because that's really what a lot of us did to get where we are now. And we weren't really ready for it like we thought we were. The truth is so deep and so much more than we could wrap our minds around. I think if we knew the entire truth, it would really destroy our minds so much.
Yeah, and you got somebody on here, and his Joe Mama. I don't know if you can hear us, Joe, but I like that. I always call people that. But he says he got somebody to come back in onto the flat Earth, and it was a guy that was 18. He woke somebody up. I think that is really good to see these young kids. And honestly, you're going to being in the high school setting, we're actually hearing about this a lot, and we're not allowed to bring it up, but you hear this in classroom talk. And even my brother a few weeks ago was hearing kids get really angry about it, because some people are going, it's not flat. What are you talking about? And I think that's a common reaction to get from kids.
They said they wanted to have a debate about it in the classroom. And I've already been dealt with my last channel, so I'm kind of under the microscope here. I don't really want to. It's sad that we have to tiptoe around things like this. We should be allowed to investigate and have these fun debates. It's a very big debate. It's an actual scientific debate right now. And the thing is, it shouldn't have to be. We should have just already proven that it's round real easily. It should be easy to do. But that's the fun thing about this, is that it's not. And because they are hiding something. Do we know the entire truth about the shape of Earth and everything? No, we don't. And there's a reason. It's too complex. Every time we see an animation of Earth, It's because that's the only way we can see Earth is through an animation, or most of Earth. Earth is just dry land. And when you scale things down to DNA, or that level where things are, they say DNA is replicating and everything, you picture it with an animation. It's too complex for us to see. There's so much going on. Earth is a very complex system. It goes far beyond our understanding. We can work together to try to figure it out. Both models have some holes, but we need to really figure things out and just seek truth and share love and not worry about the hate, not worry about all the drama. Like my brother said, there's going to be persecution. We're on the receiving end of it because, like that darn old Illuminati play card said, the people are going to laugh, but the flat earthers know something. We know something. We don't know everything. We know something's up. We know that the earth isn't moving. We know it's not round. And there's lots of tests you can do to prove it. And but we need to really work together. That's why I'm doing this video, to kind of share some things, help you out. You guys can help us out. Things are being shared like crazy. You guys are doing a good job of downloading our videos, putting them on your channel, renaming them, being creative, doing things like that. And I really appreciate that. You guys have been a major blessing to us and helping us share truth and wake people up. Was you going to say something?
Yeah, somebody was asking, they said, please explain, this is Rom, I'm not sure if that's the username, it says, please explain what you meant about the truth of Jesus. And I'm not exactly sure which specific
we were talking
that was.
Yeah, we were talking about who the Father is and who the Son is. And there's mainstream. You have to realize, if what you believe sort of matches up with the Pope, which mainstream Christianity, when it comes to who the Father and the Son are, actually lines up with the Pope and a doctrine they created after the Messiah left. It gets very deep. It's probably one of those. It's a whole other really big discussion. But the Father's Son is who the Father said he was.
Yeah,
the
and
Son
I think
is who he said he was. But mainstream Christianity, Christian music, a lot of it gets it wrong. But it's very deep. It's of the spirit of the Antichrist that Jesus warned us about when he said that it was already there in his time. And it's those who deny the Father and the Son. And there's lots of ways to deny them. The Big Bang, that denies the Father. That's why you see those numbers in the globe model, the 666 everywhere. And there's lots of things, because they really couldn't hide Jesus, the Messiah. They couldn't hide him, and the things that happened, it was spreading, and they didn't have internet. They couldn't just use Google to stop things. People were word of mouth. They were getting burned alive, and they didn't care. They were going to share it no matter what the cost was, that there's a love and grace out there for people. And they couldn't stop that. So they were desperate. There's a lot of little, last ditch efforts of the enemy to slow things down. And so they can just change who he is, and Jesus, after he left the earth, they can add some doctrines in there, and it just becomes mainstream. And it will change the way people look at who he is and who the Father is that actually sent us his Son. So they kind of like merge the two, so that there was no sending of the Son, there was no Father's grace. So there's a lot of different things that kind of go on, and it's a very controversial topic, kind of like the stationary earth when you talk about it. That's a really good question. I think my brother's going to be working on a video.
We've got a video coming out on the Grace and Truth channel, which if you want to look at some of the biblical topics, go there, because I think there's a lot of correlations when you look at the flat earth model and how the whole world says, how could we be so wrong? How could we be lied to for so long? And you go to Christianity, there's so much confusion. And I grew up in the South, both, my brother and I did. There were so many different denominations. And I'd go to one church and they'd make fun of this church down the road. You go to that church, they're making fun of the church down the road too. And it's like they're all making fun of each other. Nobody seems to agree on any single point fully. There's so many different denominations of Christianity, and in the Bible, Paul told us to let there be no divisions among us. And that's definitely not where we're at now. But there's a lot of topics that, just like with science, how we get mainstream science, that version of the earth, the same thing with Christianity. We are now accepting the mainstream version of Christianity, and there's a lot of things that are wrong about it, with as far as Roman Orthodoxy and Christian, Orthodox Christianity. And for years, I struggled with being different, trying to go to a church that followed exactly what the Bible said. And I didn't even go as far as to take the creation story literally at that point. But there's a lot of confusion about God and people thinking that he is in control of absolutely everything. And we've got some teachings on that and some teachings about, you know, should women preach in the church, or is hell really something that burns forever? And there's a lot of really touchy subjects and some things that we've got some really harsh criticism on in the past. And I think it's important to be able to go and question our long held beliefs, and becoming a biblical earth or flat earth believer, I think it helps people open up to, okay, maybe I've been lied to in other areas, especially when it comes to questioning our faith and how that relates. Because what the flat earth has really done is, once you realize that we're the center of God's creation and we are stationary, and that, the firmament is moving above our heads, it takes you out of a lukewarm state and it really makes you say, okay, God, who are you? And what can I do to get closer to you and understanding you? Because now we're starting to see this movement of people out of one deception and into this, really acceptance of truth. And now they're kind of saying, okay, well, what is it? Then you go online and you find all kinds of crazy, weird answers. And I think the truth is simple and it makes sense. Just like this whole stuff, all the stuff we're uncovering about the earth, it's all going to start making more sense once we open ourselves to it. You there, Josh?
There you go. Can you hear me
Yeah.
now? Sorry, I had my mic turned off so that you didn't hear all the background noise. But yeah, like you were saying, a lot of things starting to make sense. And when the more you investigate, the more things don't make sense. And it doesn't mean that it's not because we don't have an understanding of science. It's just that we can see the fraud. And I asked questions when I was in a debate with, I didn't call it a debate. When I got Kyle from Fight the Flat Earth channel, reached out to me, said he wanted me to come onto the show. I'd never watched the show, and he said he wanted to do a debate. I said, I really don't want to debate, but I'll have a conversation. And he said, okay, good. That's what it is. It'll be a conversation. And so I had a lot of, I was kind of not really wanting to do it at first, but I thought it would be really good to just talk to them, find out what keeps them believing that the earth is round and that there's deep space and that the earth is moving as fast as they say it is. And I asked some questions, and one of the questions I asked had to do with our journey back to the earth from the moon, because they still believe that we went to the moon. And you look at earth's speeds, they're very fast. And I want to show you this little graph here that I've put together a long time ago in the early days, looking into this, about the contrasting speeds per minute. Okay, every single minute, 60 seconds, your body on Earth would move through space. I mean, like 8,000 miles in that minute. That's because of that Big Bang, that upward motion of 490,000 miles per hour or whatever, about the distance of Earth's diameter. That's how far you move every minute. Then you go around the sun in that same minute, about 1,100 miles, and you spin about 16 and a half. So the spin, smallest movement. And when we go to think about getting from here, point A to point B, it took 48 hours. That's quite a while. And within that 48 hours, the Earth moved 23.5 million miles. And I said, how did you make it back to Earth? Or how did they make it back to Earth? And the answer has to be space-time, gravity, and there's no real straight answer as to what gravity does to make us keep up with Earth. But simply, speeds don't really matter because we're in a contained system or something. I don't know. It was a very deep, long answer. Sounded well educated, but it just is an answer that you have to believe people like Einstein over, things that you can actually test and prove. And again, a lot of those things that Einstein came up with were just because we had tested and proved Earth wasn't moving. Then those came along. So you really have to believe in those sort of things. To me, that's sort of one of the biggest nails in the coffin, is that there is no combustion speed known to man that would keep up with Earth's movements from space. Once you leave Earth, they say that you get far enough away, the spin, you can use that. Well, you definitely can get far enough away that the other movements should be a factor as well. But you can literally launch anything into space. It comes right back down to Earth where it left from, pretty close, within a few miles, because of wind blowing things and currents. But anytime you leave Earth, you can come back and be sure that you did not land on the other side, or that Earth did not move away from you. Because again, in a minute, if you were on the equator and you jumped up really, really high or sent something up into space and you're on the equator, the Earth is moving a distance of its own diameter upward through space, it's already gone. So to me, that's one of those things that lets me know Earth isn't moving. There's no way it is, but everybody wants to go there. China has been there. Russia's been there. We've been there. And now Israel is sending this little, they call it a lunar lander. It's their version of it. It's much smaller. This is actual size. This is not a toy model. This is the real deal. And just look at this thing. Look at all these wires hanging out of it. It almost looks like, I don't know what to compare it to. I've never seen wiring done that bad, except for the ISS. It kind of looks like the ISS. I don't know if they hired that electrical crew, but there's zip ties, aluminum foil everywhere, the same curtain rods from the the lunar module that we had. And everybody was wearing hair nets because heaven forbid one of their hairs lands on this and totally throws off the aerodynamics of this design. It's laughable. And they have these little blasters here that look like they just took some old Solo cups, those little red Solo or Dixie cups, and just kind of glued them on. So they have to make it lightweight. That's their justification for this, because they can't use the spin of Earth from their location like we can. And so they have to make it really lightweight. And they've made it really small, and it comes equipped with a disc. That's what they're sending to space. Nothing live, nothing really cool and groundbreaking, just a disc with information about Israel, their flag, drawings from kids and all of that, so that someday, hopefully whoever gets there, they said 50 to 100 or 500 or a million years from now, can play that disc. Now, how will they know to bring the device to play it with is anyone else's guess, but I just thought that was some funny fake news where they're going to send this to the moon. So get out your Nikon P1000s. We'll actually see it land there, unless they also choose to land on the dark side of the moon as well, so that we can't see anything. So I don't know why they don't bring a giant reflective device, put it up there, or just a camera to face us live. We should tell them to do that. But nope, they're bringing a disc to space. So what are people's thoughts on that? Is people commenting still?
Yeah, we just got we got some people making some comments not really related too much to the channel. I think there's some trolls.
Yeah.
In the comment sections.
We love you. We love trolls. Trolls are really, I've had some trolls, as long as they're not like the paid YouTube trolls and they're like actual people. I don't look at them as trolls. That sometimes it's our only hope to reach somebody is one of those people, and it's easy to lash out at someone who is. And
Manny Pinocchio said, some Globy just told me we don't feel speed, we feel acceleration.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. That is 100% true. You are not wrong. And that's one of those things, going back to this model here. If the Earth, let's say it's spinning this direction when you're moving through space, if it's moving towards following this arrow, when you get to this side, your speed actually changes because you're moving away from the direction that the Earth is moving through space. So when you're on this side, kind of like one of those spinning rides you have at the fair, like you sit in it and it spins while you circle around, you can feel those changes in acceleration. When you're on the outside and the Earth is moving towards the circular path of the Earth around the sun, then you would definitely feel a change, as opposed to when you're going away from that. So lots of different changes you would have. We're not flying in a straight line. That's another thing. We're not like a plane where you can throw something up on a plane or on a cruise ship or on a fast-moving train and it comes right back down to your hand. We're moving in a curved path around. They say we are. We're not. But it would be a curved path, never a straight line, in combination with that spinning.
We have somebody here that says the CIA. He said, the Earth is flat and enclosed. I'm a CIA agent, and I've seen top secret documents that prove the Earth is not a ball. Now, of course, that you can say that could be anyone. But were we live earlier when we were talking about those documents that got released from Russia, or was that our unrecorded session?
I believe that was unrecorded. I believe.
Okay.
We were just blabbing
Right.
away.
So yeah, earlier we were talking about some documents that were released, and of course, the CIA website, they release documents that get declassified, and things from the 50s and before that have been declassified. And certain things just kind of slip through the cracks. Well, there was a document that somebody shared, and I actually looked this up on the website to make sure, on the CIA.gov website, to make sure it was real. And there is a declassified document that talks about the firmament, and it was from the USSR, and this is in 1955, if I'm remembering correctly. It's on if you go to Grace and Truth Fellowship of our YouTube channel, you will find the creation cover-up video, and it's in there for just a second, but you can actually see the original document. And they talk about in this, and you could tell by reading this declassified document, it was actually a study they were doing, and there was lots of sources and things that they tried, but they said they were testing the brightness of the firmament. And there was some big fancy words in there that I wasn't really too familiar with, and I was like, what in the world? Why would they be talking about testing something on the firmament back in 1955? We knew that that was not real, supposedly. We're trying to send people to the moon in the 70s, but 1955, supposedly we already knew the Earth was a globe in space, and they're talking about this in Russia, and it somehow ends up being declassified. I don't know why that ended up making its way through the cracks. What was that all about? But I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, and we've seen the firmament now since that leaked document. We've seen it. We have video of it. They, of course, blocked my first video, the big one I did about it, in the United States. Some people still saw it afterwards in other countries, but not a lot. It had a lot of momentum, and we have that footage. It's available, and they no longer do this. You no longer see people going up and studying above the clouds when there's a storm going on to actually reveal the firmament like they did back then. And they were showing us all sorts of ISS footage in combination with that documentary. Like, oh yeah, we've seen these things from space. And then they show you these little bitty tiny flashes that look nothing like what they were seeing, and go, there it is, people. We've seen it. That's not the firmament. So really interesting that we've actually seen that, and we have it. So it's one of those things, seeing is believing. You don't have to believe us. Look at it. You can see it. You can see waves move across it. But here's a list of the people that have gone to the moon, broken past the firmament there. Do you think this thing here, now look at this and tell me if you would trust putting this with your life inside of this, inside of a vacuum chamber. Because remember, the vacuum chamber needs a wall that's 6 feet or however many, thick. It needs a really thick, the one they have at NASA, that giant one they use, that has a really thick wall. I don't know why, because this is about as thick as 3 sheets of foil. And that's exactly what they tell you. If you don't believe me, we can send you that. Where NASA experts tell us it's about 3 sheets of aluminum foil thick. They had to be careful not to poke their fingers through it. And when you look at it, you can go, okay, that looks true. It's wrinkled up. And another channel I was watching the other day said, how on earth would that survive a vacuum? We cannot make a vacuum chamber with that amount or with that thickness of material. It would not work at all whatsoever. And I thought, that's a really good challenge. We always have all these challenges, but to prove that we went, have somebody use something that thick, that exact material, and about the size of the lunar module, and see if they can make a vacuum chamber that can go all the way to a vacuum without imploding or, and breaking down, or if they can just stick it inside of a vacuum chamber and then turn it on and see what happens. I would love to see what happens. I would like to see those results. I don't have a giant vacuum chamber, so I can't do that here, but or a small scale version of that if you're really good with vacuum chambers. I think Action Lab and Cody's lab, I would like to challenge them to do that. That would be awesome. They do a lot of vacuum experiments. But there's the Russian lunar module. Did anybody ever see that thing land? I never saw any footage of that except for like some animations they made afterwards. But they supposedly went. China went, and now Israel's going. But just some convenient lies we talked about earlier when we were not live, when we thought we were. Early days of looking this stuff up, one of the convenient lies was the Van Allen belts, and NASA says it's a man-made barrier surrounding Earth or shrouding Earth.
It's man-made space weather, man. Look it up. Yeah. Don't you understand that kind of stuff?
It's man-made barrier surrounding Earth. They spotted it. Their probes spotted it. They've actually saw it.
Thank God for those probes busy finding man-made bubbles surrounding Earth.
And the Van Allen belts were originally discovered with a balloon using a Geiger counter, which cracks me up because a balloon only goes about 32 miles. That's like the record, the world record. And just to discover it. And they're like, well, they just discovered it. The Van Allen probes like looked all the way and discovered, how far they go. But the ISS is 200 miles, 32 miles isn't even close. And they haven't even passed through the Van Allen belts yet. So I thought that was interesting that he discovered them with a balloon.
They were talking about the NASA astronauts, how they made it through the Van Allen belts. And I was looking at some comments one day on people were talking about that specifically. And somebody said, yeah, sure, the NASA astronauts survived the Van Allen radiation belt. And somebody goes, you idiot, they went through the hole. It's donut shaped. And I was
It
like,
actually
wow.
is. Their model has a
And
donut-shaped hole, but they never go through it anymore.
so they
They
can't
lost the
get through
technology to
those
do
belts
that.
now. Why don't they just go through the same place? And they went out of it and came back in that same opening. I just kind of felt like that was a little odd, or lucky for those guys that they didn't die in the Van Allen radiation belt.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely a lot of luck there, because they said they hadn't been discovered yet. But here is another thing, and people always go, why would they say we just now figured out that the atmosphere goes beyond the moon? Well, because it helps out other lies, and you can dismiss things now with this argument that the reason the flag waved on the moon when somebody hopped by it when they were like 5 feet away, it waved in the wind, wasn't because they were in a studio. It was because the atmosphere of the Earth extends beyond the moon. So it's not a vacuum. Not a perfect vacuum anyway. There's atmosphere that goes 300 and something thousand miles away from Earth, and it keeps everything in line. That way they can go to it, come straight back, and that atmosphere that's kind of cemented to the Earth and moves with the Earth and doesn't get lost in space will keep that little lunar module in a straight path to Earth, so it doesn't have to use its propulsion to move 23 million miles during that 48 hours. So it's a lot of convenient lies that they're coming up with, and people buy it. Now, if this was a flat Earth article and we said, hey, look, guys, the moon's within Earth's atmosphere, we would be the laughing stock of everything if we tried to put an article out like that. And ballers could probably agree, yes, we would be laughing if you said, look, the moon's inside Earth's atmosphere. But if it's Russian scientist, and again, they just say Russian scientist, is this not one of the biggest discoveries of the year or decade? I would think so. And not a single person gets credit, but they say Russian scientist. So that to me is a little shady there too, that it's, oh, just scientist, not some guy, not Van Allen or whoever else this guy is. No Einstein figure, just Russian scientist, and it becomes mainstream knowledge. It's going to be in your textbooks in about 2 or 3 years as soon as they can print new ones. So very interesting and convenient lies to kind of keep us where we are. Too many people are waking up, so much damage control going on, but just lots of different stories. You can kind of see where they're mocking God's word about the firmament and lots of things like that. When they talk about the Van Allen belts being the window to the universe, and when I was originally looking into this and they talked about the windows of heaven during the flood, they were talking about the firmament. And now they're saying the Van Allen belts are the windows to the universe. There's got that little hole, that little sleuth. And when you look at that word, when he said the windows of heaven, it's a different word in the original language than windows when they talk about a window of the ark, because here it just means like a hole in the wall, but it means like a lattice, a window, a sluice, a chimney, or an opening where smoke can escape, or with openings for water. So different than the windows of the ark. So back, the original language would have to be something really spectacular to understand and read the Bible in, because those words would be different and it would paint a much better picture of what the earth is. And lots of cool things we're going to go over here in just a minute. But this was one of those things here. People, one of the questions they asked me on that show was, what keeps me from going back to this model here? And how did I end up here in the first place? And one of the first things I did, and I encourage all of you to do, is just to go look at the stars. Go out at night, stare at the stars on a clear night. Do it for about 6 months. You can even do it for a year. But 6 months is all it should take to be looking the opposite direction in space. And I did that. And I kept seeing the same stars over night after night, month after month, until about 7 months later, I said, look, this is, something's off. This is definitely something I can destroy just by looking at the stars. And they say, well, it's because you're so small. That was the argument they had, was you're so tiny. But try standing in a room, turning around, doing a 180. See if you can see the wall behind you. It's, unless you're in a round room, it's impossible. So I thought that was interesting. I really can't debunk that because it's observations that I could make with my own eyes. I'm not believing based on a YouTube video, just going out and looking at the stars night after night. They do shift when the sun kind of changes its path, but they do not disappear and have new stars that we should be seeing. We never see that. We never see those stars on the other side of the sun. We just don't, on the nighttime side of Earth. So that was one of those things that was really big to me. And a lot of people talk about models of Earth, us not having a working model of Earth. And there's a reason that I don't obsess over models, trying to make one, trying to build one, getting one perfect that works just perfectly. And it goes back to the Bible and deception, where it tells us, and I had never even noticed this verse, where it says, "You are not to make for yourselves a carved image or any kind of representation of anything in heaven above, on the earth beneath, or in the waters below the shoreline." And I had never seen that before. And I was one of those who in school loved hands-on projects. I knew the order of the planets when I was 5 or 4, and I knew how to make the Earth. I knew what the core looked like. All these different things we had models of: deep space, planets hanging from strings, and didn't even know that it was in the Bible that a lot of people say they read. And it kind of goes, one of those things there. That's almost a religious issue. Is it kind of goes against the word, telling people to do these things. Here, go against the word, make these structures, and it deceives little children. The Father knew that this was going to happen eventually, and that's why he didn't want people doing stuff like this, so that it
Yeah,
would.
and I think it's interesting too if you look at the book of Enoch, where they talk about the planets being mistaken for gods, and every single planet that we have in our solar system is named after a god.
Yeah, it was a prophecy. It said we would lose our understanding of the stars, and the chief stars would leave. And the book of Enoch uses words that we use today. They would leave their orbital paths. It used the word orbital, and it used other big words when you're reading it, talking about like creation, like deciduous and things like all these different words that we use now, they used in that book. And so orbital paths, them leaving their orbital paths, they don't move with the other stars. And they like you said, they're definitely named after. Every single one except for Earth is named after a god, and Earth is just dry land. It's kept its name since creation. That's the cool thing, but it's not a planet, and it's been prophesied about. It's very complex system, way more complex than the ball flying through space. Not that God could not create that. He could. People say, well, he could do that. That's really cool. I like that model. I loved that model, and I did not want to come and destroy it and become a flat earther. Nobody wants to become a flat earther. It's
And I
not
think
what I want to do.
it's funny from a perspective of, I've always been since I was 18 years old, a real born again Christian. And I've always said, I believe the Bible, and I believe every word of it. It has to be true. But there were things when I got to the creation story, I always kind of said, you know what? It's got to be figurative to a certain extent. And certain events I never really looked too much into. Like in the book of Joshua, the sun stopped moving in the sky. And I could go with that. But I never thought what that would mean on a heliocentric model. It would mean that literally we went from moving, thousands upon thousands of miles per hour, that we would have had to stop our movement. But in that account, the sun stopped moving. What would that mean on the heliocentric model? Now, on a biblical Earth, flat Earth model, the sun not moving is no big deal, right? It's within the firmament. It's fairly close. And when it stops, it stops, and you've got these explanations in the Bible, in the book of Psalms, of the sun being like, like a runner on its course in a race. It's actually circling. When you look at what happens in a race, they're going around this track in a circle. They're the ones moving, and all these clear references to when God, if you go back to the Genesis account and look at it with new eyes, it's incredible what we've always just been trained to read past, or we kind of exchange one word from another, when it says God made the firmament to separate the waters above from the waters below. What does that even mean? I just kind of said, oh, it must be the clouds and rain. And here we are with an exact model from thousands of years ago. I mean, the book of Genesis goes back to, Moses in the Bronze Age, and you've got him talking about and describing these things that there's no way they could have just known back then through sending up, any kind of crafts or balloons. They had to know from the source, from the creator, that there was this firmament above our heads. And to me, that is what makes this so incredible, is to say it's been here the whole time. And that, you got God, and somebody in the comments earlier mentioned that God sits above the circle of the earth. And, I always thought, oh yeah, that is, and I think it was Betty that said that God's above the circle of the earth. Yeah. And in my mind, I always imagined that being a globe as a younger believer. But circle, there's a different word in the biblical language, in the Hebrew and the Greek. There was a word for sphere, and they never used that. God sat above the circle of the earth, and he was looking down, and he made the firmament like a tent to live in. This is something in the original language it's like being hammered out. It was a solid object. And it says he put the moon, the sun, the stars in the firmament of heaven. And he called the firmament heaven. So we see that word heaven and we automatically think, oh, heaven, the skies, and that's it. And we just kind of throw that word out, but it meant something. You still got sound, Josh? Hello?
Sorry, I turned my mic off and I'm talking away to you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. I turned my mic off to get rid of some of the noise, but I was reading through some of the comments here. I finally have realized, why don't I just pull it up on my phone so I can present and see the comments and fellowship, which is what I wanted to come here to do in the first place, because really love a lot. Our subscribers are the best ever. And even ones that are just here to kind of debate and talk, like Brenda. Where'd she go? I'm losing it. I'm scrolling through. Where'd she go? Someone named Brenda on here was wanting to debate and saying stuff. That's awesome. Maybe one day we might just have an open time where we kind of talk to people. I don't really like debates. I do like to have conversations, ask questions. It can be, if you want to consider it a debate, can be sort of like that. But I like to just have conversations and say, look, this is what I believe is possible. Can you, and you're free to show us how. It's not anytime. Send us emails, ask us questions. There are definitely a lot of things that are way more complex about Earth than we may ever understand. And it's the same way with DNA. People say that, if you think about it, now think about this, when you're looking at, in your mind, when you're trying to imagine what happens with DNA and replication and DNA making copies so that your cells can make copies of cells, and you think about all these things, you picture an animation. When you think about the solar system, you picture animations, because we have to have them to see beyond the heavens that are really there in the firmament and things that are microscopic in life, the complexities of life. It has to be with an animation, and we accept it as fact. Is it way more complex than those animations? Yes, it is. It's definitely more complex. But a video that I was wanting to do a while back was about what's below the Earth. That's a very interesting subject. People go, oh, is it a disk floating in space? I hate that word disk. It's not a disk floating in space. And it's not a, molten hot core, because if it was a molten hot core on a globe, magnets lose their power, and there's supposedly a big bar magnet through Earth with the way things work. And anytime you superheat a magnet, it loses all function completely. So definitely on that. But this is very interesting, what's below the Earth, because when I pictured the flood, and I would picture the waters going down, mountains poking up through the water, and a lot of you probably had these same images in your mind. Never did I ever picture this. I just never pictured the windows of heaven opening up and pictured that. I don't know if anyone else has pictured that exact sort of imagery. I never did until recently, going, how would that be on a globe? Now that I'm really thinking about it, and using, critical thinking here, how would that work on a globe model? Not that it couldn't, but the Earth itself was founded upon the waters. And this is from Enoch, but this is actually in the Genesis story too. And it says, and from the hidden recesses of the mountains come beautiful waters, from the creation of the world and forever. Well, when you go to Genesis, it says, now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep. Didn't say the earth did not exist. During the creation story, it didn't say he made the earth. He said it was formless and
It was
empty.
without form and void, yeah.
Yeah, it was void. There was no life on it. It was dark.
When you talk about proving things from a scientific standpoint, and I see some comments on here, some people talking about being atheist, or, they want facts, they want proof. And we go into the world of science, and that's what we want to do, is we want to find proof that what we see, how did we get here? I think that's where people really buy into things like evolution and this Big Bang. They want to know the answer, and they want proof. And you hear these theories and you assume that they are proof. And I think with the Bible, people often give it the reputation that it's not based on proof at all, and that you just accept it on blind faith. And if you're here listening to this chat and you're questioning God, and you basically have no intention or desire to look into it because it just seems like a fairy tale, I want to urge you to go check out our channel, the Grace and Truth Fellowship channel, and there's some things there on prophecy and these things that always came true, and especially about the life of Jesus Christ. But there's so many more than that. So many what they call historically verifiable prophecies. Things like that were written in the book of Isaiah. We found this in the Dead Sea Scrolls. You know, people tried to say for centuries that the book of Isaiah had to be, it was so accurate and it told the history so accurately that someone had to just backdate it and say, oh, yeah, this was written hundreds of years before it was. But we found all the books of Isaiah in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they were mentioning, you know, kingdoms by, or, you know, king, like say King Cyrus, for example, they mention him by name and they say he's going to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. Well, we know when the book of Isaiah was written, we have those manuscripts, and we know that hundreds of years later, a king named Cyrus rebuilt the temple in Jerusalem. And God said in the Bible, in the book of Isaiah, he said, test my words and see that they come true. He never said, and that's the one thing I think as Christians, like, why do you believe the Bible? Because, you know, you just believe it on blind faith, right? No, God said, see the former things, see that they come true, test my words. And I think that's important. Test all things. God told us, he said, test all things, prove all things, and see the former things that I said, watch that I make them come to pass. And it happened over and over and over again. And there's some really, if you're interested in that kind of thing, or if you just want to debunk it, go to our Grace and Truth Fellowship YouTube channel. Look at the videos on, can you trust the Bible? Is the Bible, you know, is it accurate? And another one of those things to look into is God in control of everything that happens? Because if you're getting, like, if you're like us and you kind of go into those truth movements and you start looking into the evil things that are going on behind the scenes, and you watch the news, it's easy to get in a funk and kind of get down about the negative things going on around us. But look at, you know, this false notion that when bad things happen, you know, God had a reason for it. And I just recently, a real young kid died around here, and it was a terrible thing. And I knew his family really well, and I coached his brother, and there was a lot of people hurt. And I think in times like this, people want to blame God. And when you think that God's in control of everything and you don't realize that there is a force that's out there that is actually, you know, the Bible refers to the adversary, to Satan, as the ruler of this present age. You know, when you start thinking that God's in control of everything and that these bad things are due to him, you know, it is confusing. And I think a lot of people get led away from God because something either bad happened to them, or they were told when something bad did happen that it was God's doing. And it turns a lot of people off to the creation concept, or to the fact that there is a God, because they say, well, if there is a God, how can he do these types of things? Yep. And if you go in and I know that, and that this is, you know, it's one of those things that it would take forever to really kind of get to the basics, but check out our videos on Is God Always Good? We have a 2-part series on that. And I think it answers a lot of the common misconceptions when people want to know, why do bad things happen? You know, I think that's one huge issue we need to cover. And the other one is, does the Bible prove itself true? Do the prophecies that we know when they were written, did they come true exactly like they said they would? Especially when we have 300 prophecies about this man, Jesus Christ, that we know the events in his life. They were well documented. We know all of those prophecies came true. I think the mathematical chances of that just being an accident or a staged event are impossible.
Mm-hmm. And we will link those. I want to link those videos in the description after this is over, so you guys can find them if you're having trouble finding his channel. But those are some definitely interesting things. And we have, I was looking, trying to watch the comments. We got Flat Earth Dude on here, Kenny, super awesome. He's the one who filmed the satellite passing in front of the moon, the one that was attached to some balloons. Super awesome footage. Plain Truth is here. Some awesome people joining in. So thank you guys for joining us, waiting. But we were talking about that creation story that he was saying, you know, people don't really want to look into it because they really don't know who the Father is, how awesome he is, how much he loves them, and why bad things happen. But once you figure out who he is, how much he loves you, and that bad things happen because there is an enemy out there, and death is the enemy, and, you know, that enemy will be destroyed and defeated. That's awesome. And but the creation story, it's so cool. It talks about the water and the waters. When you're looking into creation, you hear a lot about these waters and the earth um, coming up out of the waters. But those waters, and you hear science. Now, this is science. This isn't something that I've made up, that they've
Okay.
discovered reservoirs of
Yeah.
water 3 times the volume of the oceans, deep beneath Earth's surface. And so you see these articles, and that's talking about the fountains of the deep. There is water beneath us.
And got a comment here. I think I might have misspoke. Somebody said the devil is not in control. I might have said that. I was trying to kind of paraphrase a verse. There's a verse that says that we are gods, or we are gods, not that we are gods, but we know that we belong to God, and that the whole world is under the control. In other words, under the influence of the evil one. Not that the devil's in control of everything. Let me get that straight. I don't want to, and it's hard to say these things on the spot and not really get your words mixed up. But God is in the Bible. It calls him the Lord of hosts, which, if you don't know what that word means, it means the armies. And there is a battle going on, and there are going to be casualties, and there is literally a good and a bad force that are in the world. And when you look at the miracles of Jesus Christ, he was healing the sick, he was raising the dead, and he was calming the storm. He was doing all these good things. And he said, the reason I was sent here was to destroy the devil's work. And he told us he always did his Father's will. So if Jesus is only doing good things, and he's doing his Father's will, and he's destroying the devil's work, then you gotta realize that even Jesus understood that God wasn't making these people sick. There's another force, and Jesus was here to undo those works. And then that's what I meant. I might have misspoke. Just to clarify that, I saw one of the comments, and I could not remember exactly what I said.
Yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out. Cipher 321.
Maybe he reads the Sefer. Yeah. So somebody's asking questions about satellites, or satellites are fake. So I know GPS is ground based. Okay. And somebody said something earlier about satellites being real. Check out, oh God, I've got to put a video together about this, but I've been seeing some really cool communication videos with those cables that go into the sea, and they crisscross this earth. I mean, they are shoreline to shoreline. Anywhere there's a shoreline in deep ocean, they have many, many millions of miles worth of cables connecting everything. Everything's connected. There are satellites. They do exist. You can see them in the sky. They are real, but they are floating above, attached to some sort of balloon or other technology. And that's the thing about them. That's why we have stationary satellites. They're just floating. They come crashing down quite often. Some new footage has come up about one crashing down in a field. And you can just go on and on compiling all this stuff. It's a very deep subject. There are so many complexities to it. That's why it's hard to just wake somebody up right away. There's way too many things that go into it. We're going to try to continue to compile things, revamp a lot of the older videos we did, because we kind of held back a little bit when I did my series, Why They Lie. I broke it into 3 parts. I did it really fast. I felt that it was super important for people to understand the lies on this earth and why they hide creation, what they're really hiding, who they're stopping you from becoming, and how they keep us all controlled. So I thought that was probably one of the most important things. And I'm going to redo, kind of, instead of a 1-part series, kind of tell the entire story without holding back, without worrying about people's feelings and people getting mad because we talk about the Bible. Going to just put it all out there, be blunt with it, and do it in a way that people can understand, because people need to understand why there's so many lies. It's hard to believe that we could all be fooled the way that we were. I would love to think that the reality I had growing up was real, that I wasn't deceived, but we were. And we can continue exposing these lies. Censorship has slowed us down a little bit, but just be more creative and use this time to kind of regroup and focus on the important things, the Spirit, the relationship with the Father. When we start doing these things and praying and coming together, so a lot of things are going to get done. You're going to see some action start happening. I mean, that's the reason why we're here. The Father was listening to us. He was wanting to wake you up for a purpose. And it's just super cool that we're all kind of coming together, sharing things. And again, be kind to those who are here, even if they seem like trolls. Be kind. This may be the only chance we get to wake somebody up. Or not really just wake them up. Send them love. They don't have to wake up. Understanding the earth isn't moving doesn't mean you're awake. I've known a lot of people who are truthers, and they don't believe that, and they're pretty much awake. They see the evilness, the deception, and they know the Father's real. He could have created a globe just as easily as a stationary Earth. But there's just way more proof the more you look into it with an open mind, that the Earth is stationary and that the Father is real. You need to experience that love. It's something that will really change your life. Okay, aside from the shape of Earth, if you experience that, you'll know He's real. He's not who the world tells you who He is. He's not this wrathful being that wants to punish you when you mess up. He has some guidelines, of course, but it's the same reason you tell your child not to cross the street without looking both ways. It's not so that you can punish them when they do cross the road without looking both ways. It's to keep them alive, to keep them safe. And in these end times, we really need to be safe. Keep on that full armor at all times, for sure. Okay. Well, kind of getting lengthy here. I did appreciate you guys joining in, seeing you guys in the comments. I know my brother's got things to do now that our schedules have opened up. We will definitely try our best to do more live hangouts if you guys enjoyed this. Not a lot of cool, super interesting new discoveries.
Yeah, and if you guys, again, if you guys would like to join us in any kind of a fellowship way, just to talk with us, to chat with us, we are looking for fellowship opportunities to really spend time building each other up. And one thing the Bible says is it doesn't say go to church, but it does say forsake not to gather, and build each other up in your most holy faith. And I think it's important as believers and people looking for truth that we do spend time with like-minded people, because you're going to get to a point, especially if you're in this topic and you're in this rabbit hole, you're going to feel isolated and alone. And I can't even talk to my wife about this. She thinks it's the craziest, stupidest thing in the world. So you're going to feel isolated from friends and family. And we're not talking about this with our friends at work. So it's good to have people like you guys around to kind of share the word with. And I'd like to get one of you guys on here with us to kind of just pick your brain. If you have expertise and knowledge in something, or if you just want to kind of ask some questions with us, let us know. We'd love to hear from you guys.
Yeah. So any last questions, anything you guys have for us you wanted to ask or say, please do. I've enjoyed kind of reading through these comments. You guys are so awesome. It's such a blessing that you all were sent here in the first place. It was a prayer of mine that I had in the early days. And just when he was just listening to everything and me finding out, wow, he really is listening, and his creation is the way he said it was. And he was showing me things, the firmament and the footage and all these different things were coming into my lap. Just when you seek things, it's amazing how fast it happens. And then I feel like sometimes we stop seeking. But one of the things I asked for was him to send people this way. And he has, and it's good because it happened before censorship. So you're already here. Make sure you click the bell icon, because there's something we're about to put out that may get our channel shut down. It has to do with a message that's been hidden for quite a while. And you'll see why once we expose that. It's a message my dad found. I'm going to probably have him on to explain it, because it's spectacular. I just saw somebody say they really didn't know, believe in God. That's fine for now, but we want to change that for sure. There are many proofs, but this hidden message that was hidden in a language that hasn't even been created yet, back when it was hidden, is really spectacular. It's for us, this generation that's walking the earth right now. So it's very important that we get that out there. I'm going to get my dad involved in that. I've been kind of spooked about it, because the very first time I made a video about it back in 2011, a major tornado came through my town while I was working on it and tore down a wall. And this wall had my name on it. It was a wall of champions we had in our old wrestling room. And that wall was destroyed except for my name. My name was the only name intact. And my dad was like, do you realize we were working on this video exactly when that happened? And like, it was a message to me from the enemy or something. So it spooked me, and I really have kind of shied away from it. But I think that's ridiculous to be fearful. There is no jurisdiction over us when we're believers. So definitely want to put that message out there. It's really important. And I want you guys to receive it, download it, copy it, share it, and all of that. It's going to be really, really cool. So I love you guys. You guys are a beloved creation. If you weren't, you wouldn't be persecuted by the enemy, and bad things wouldn't happen. Okay. So I'm glad to have me and my brother on here for the first time. We may come back, have somebody else. Really looking forward to the fellowship and our schedules opening up so that we can do stuff like this. And this summer, I'm going to go ahead and say it now. I haven't said it yet. I'll be going to Australia, to the bottom of the globe, to visit. So maybe some possible meetups there. I will advertise that at a later date. Not sure if anybody will see that, But definitely going to get some good footage there, some good fellowship, some more studying, seeing parts of the firmament that I have never seen before. And we'll look forward to sharing that footage with you guys. Michael, do you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Sorry we were late. You know, we thought we were live for about 20 minutes there and realized that we had not pressed the final okay. But you know, jump over if you want to hear some of our biblical teachings at our channel, Grace and Truth Fellowship YouTube channel. Check us out. Some of the videos are on here, but I think a majority of them are now going to be listed only on that channel. So if you want to kind of keep those two sites separate, you can get a lot of our biblical topics over there. And thank you guys. It's been a blessing. Y'all have a great night.
All right. Let me see if I can actually end this. Sadly, it's coming to an end. It's coming to an end. Love you guys. Have a blessed evening and enjoy the rest of your night or day, wherever you're at on the plane. God bless.